Now, once again, Raymond Arroyo.
Welcome back to The World Over Live. My next guest is leading an international effort to ensure the right to clean water for every human being in the poorest parts of the world. He is the founder and executive director of Dig Deep, an organization that aims to build up sustainable water projects in needy countries in partnership with local communities, bringing Catholic social teaching really to bear in addressing the very serious problem of water poverty. Here to explain, would you welcome George McGraw. George, thanks for being here.
Pleased to meet you, Raymond.
Now,
thanks for having me.
Let's talk about this effort. Where did this come from, this Dig Deep effort?
Well, I'm a human rights lawyer, and I have a very fundamental belief that every human everywhere has a right to access clean water. But my particular work came from an epiphany. I was working for a major international organization and watching these water projects be constructed all over the world, but specifically at the time in Afghanistan after the war.
Wow.
And the projects were being planned and constructed in such a way that over 50% of them were failing every year. And the families that had access to water for a short time were being thrown back into poverty. Their children were dying, they were getting sick again, losing their education or economic activity. And so I started an organization to make that work more sustainable.
George, we have so many international organizations, including the UN. There is no shortage of contraceptives and other things. Why water is down on the list, I've never understood. Why is there a crisis, and why are these international organizations more engaged on this issue? 1 billion people, you say, are in water poverty.
Yeah, almost 1 billion people, about 883 million people, so 1 in 7 of us.
Wow.
I think the short answer to your question is that water hasn't been on the tip of everyone's tongue for a long time because everyone takes it for granted. And you and I know that here in the U.S. we have access to an abundant amount of cheap, clean water. So much so that the average American uses about 500 liters of water per person per day.
Wow.
That's an incredible amount of water just at home for, washing the dog, cooking, cleaning, drinking. So I think if we really want to affect this problem, with gusto, effectively, sustainably, we have to first build some sort of awareness of why water is important, that it is a basic human right.
So now you've created this challenge. Now tell us about this challenge. It's a 4-liter challenge. That's just a little more than a gallon. That's a little teeny bit of water. What are you asking people to do with that?
4 liters is about 1.2 gallons, and we are daring Americans to live on that amount of water for a couple of days, 4 liters a day, and to use that for cooking, cleaning, drinking, and bathing. And the idea is that by living on 4 liters, you become so much more aware of how much water you consume every day. So much more aware of all the little tasks that require water. And the point is to build some empathy with people that suffer water poverty, but also to affect our own consumption here at home.
And what is the outcome of the challenge? I mean, what are you looking for people to do? I mean, is there a challenge point, a call to action? As a
Sure, absolutely. The call to action, first of all, is education. To go up and sign up at 4liters.org and to really change your life for a couple days, and to use that to change the way you look at water forever. But at the same time, use your challenge to raise funds that will batch back 100% to clean water access projects, both in the developing world, but actually also here in the United States.
How is this tied to Catholic social teaching and to your personal faith?
Well, Dig Deep is a secular organization, but I am a devout Roman Catholic, and so many of my staff are. And so many basic human rights principles, growing up were better articulated as Catholic social teaching. The fact that everyone has inherent human rights that stem from an inherent human dignity, and from a Catholic or even a Christian perspective, that human dignity stems from our image and likeness in God. And so I think that what we're trying to do at Dig Deep is take this fundamental Catholic social teaching, that water is a basic human right because it's a basic human need, and make that real for people.
Now tell me where these water projects are being erected. And it's not only in far-flung locales. It's here in the United States as well.
That's the craziest thing. We work in places you'd expect, like South Sudan, Kenya, Uganda, Cameroon. But there's tremendous water poverty right here in the United States. About 13% of Native Americans don't have access to water here in the U.S. That's a worse access rate than some sub-Saharan, Latin American, or Asian countries. And
that seems inconceivable to me.
It really is crazy. In the tens and hundreds of thousands. And I think that's why 4 liters is so important. If we don't start paying attention to water here at home, these vast swaths of people suffering in tremendous poverty, just hours from the cities we live in. I live in Los Angeles, for instance, and this is just a couple hours away. They'll go unnoticed and unhelped. And who wants to live in a world where access to water is that difficult.
George McGraw, thank you so much for being here.
Thanks for having me, Raymond.
And you can find out more about George's work at digdeepwater.org. And you can also take the 4-liter challenge. Just click the banner at the center of the homepage. Thanks again for being here, George.
Thanks, Raymond.